Anyone unfortunate enough to have had a prolonged discussion with me about Formula One will no doubt know of my troubled equation with Ferrari. But before the Tifosi launch a full-scale inquiry and begin figuring out where I live, a disclaimer. I have nothing but respect for Ferrari's achievements. They are the most successful team of all time. They are the only team to have taken part in every single season since the championship's foundation in 1950, and the list of innovations for which they have been responsible is significant. That said, as much as I resent the phrase, "you're only as good as your last race," the Scuderia's form in recent years has been nothing short of infuriating. Operational failures, car trouble, inconsistent pace, bot strategies, really bad driver management, particularly when showing one the door, it's all piled up, and the net result is, frankly, alarming. Ferrari as a collective has won fewer races since 2007 than Max Verstappen has won by himself since 2016. And no, I don't care that he's had some of the most dominant cars of all time. He is still an individual. Ferrari is a team that has had the likes of Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen under its employ over the past decade. They should not be on the losing end of such a comparison. Regardless, I can't help but look at the team's current state and think change might be afoot. Don't get it twisted. I'm not going to try and claim that we're on the cusp of some new era of Ferrari domination. That I will believe only when I see it. But the Scuderia's recent conduct suggests that it is pursuing a longer-term future more seriously than it has done in recent years, the central tenets of which are already being put in place. So, for this video, I thought I'd run through some of the most important variables and how each may contribute to Ferrari's potential future success. It'll surprise no one to learn that team principal Frederick Vasseur is one of the most seminal figures in all of this. Despite never leading a top team, the Frenchman's resume is nevertheless impressive and more than justifies his current position. After forming the Formula 3 team ASM, Vasseur claimed the 1998 F3 championship with eventual Porsche Super Cup star David Salens. A run of 4 consecutive Euro Series championships followed, with the likes of Jamie Green, Paul di Resta, Romain Grosjean and one Lewis Hamilton all claiming titles between 2004 and 2007. But Vasseur's greater contribution to the junior categories has undoubtedly been ART. Jointly founded by Vasseur and Nicolas Todt, son of legendary Ferrari team principal Jean Todt, ART's imprint on European single-seater racing has been vast. I could wax lyrical about their various achievements in GP2 and GP3, but such is the number of titles for which they have been responsible that I'm actually just going to let the team's most prominent names roll up the screen. 6 Euro F3 titles, 5 GP2 titles, 3 F2 crowns and a Formula Renault Euro Cup. Yeah, you get the gist. Suffice to say, Frederick can genuinely lay claim to having aided the careers of around half the current grid. It may have been the junior categories, but this man knows how to run a successful racing operation. But what of his time in F1? Granted, Vasseur's first role as team principal at the Renault squad in 2016 was nothing to write home about. The Frenchman spent a single season at the Enstone-based outfit, ultimately losing an intra-team political bout with eventual team principal Cyril Abiteboul. Out in the cold, Vasseur found refuge at Sauber, and it's there that he made a name for himself. They may never have troubled the established frontrunners, but the fact still remains. Vasseur took a cash-strapped back-marker team, one that could scarcely afford to run its own wind tunnel, and finished last in the 2017 Constructors' race, and turned it into a credible midfield outfit, one that helped launch Charles Leclerc's Formula One career, and occasionally legitimately hustled the likes of Mercedes and Aston Martin. En route to P6 in the Constructors' table in 2022, Vasseur's last year as team principal. Frederick is not the kind of man who is daunted by pressure, and having spearheaded Alfa Romeo's turnaround, he's clearly looking to repeat the feat at Ferrari. A task I think will be made slightly more feasible by another detail, the fact that he isn't Italian. Yes, this is a strange factor to focus on, I admit, and no, I am not trying to create some false equivalency between Vasseur and the last Frenchman to front Ferrari, Jean Todt. But I do think that it is easier for Italian team principals to get swept up in the mythos, lyricism and cultural significance of Ferrari. Just look at the rhetoric of Vasseur's immediate predecessor, Mattia Binotto, and you'll see what I mean. When things went south, he clearly felt the pressure, and while Vasseur is undoubtedly aware of the responsibility, I can't help but think that the appointment of a non-Italian team principal means that Ferrari is now being run by a man who primarily sees the team as a competitive outlet that he needs to optimize, rather than a national institution that he needs to resurrect. Having a close relationship with his forthcoming driver lineup should undoubtedly help as well. Oh, and speaking of drivers, just as the greatest driver in the world is rendered powerless if given a milk float, so too is an engineering marvel of little use if you haven't tried your hardest to secure the best drivers you can. Vasseur is currently presiding over something of a sea change with regards to his driver lineup. Carlos Sainz is on his way out, the top brass having elected not to renew his contract. His place, as we all know, will be taken by Sir Lewis Hamilton. This particular move is one I've talked about in a previous video, so feel free to have a look at that if you're interested. The long and short of it is as follows. Despite being past his absolute peak, at least in my view, Hamilton still has the wherewithal to become a serial winner and add to his 103 Grand Prix wins, the last of which came all the way back in Saudi Arabia 2021. Hamilton claims that he's as hungry as ever, and, as we have seen many times before, a brand new team can serve as a shot in the arm for a driver and lead to a significant turnaround in form, especially if said driver has spent the last 2 years combating a recalcitrant Mercedes. The point is, an eager 7-time world champion can only benefit both the team and its long-standing superstar, Charles Leclerc. The forthcoming dynamic between the two has been deconstructed immensely, as well as who's more likely to come out on top in their first season together. But for me personally, the most intriguing aspect of Ferrari's current driver landscape is the apparent long-term future they have the potential to construct. 19-year-old Oliver Behrman's one-off appearance at this year's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was both a welcome surprise for all and solidified his status as a bona fide, viable Formula One candidate. However, as is so often the case with fresh-faced superstars, that initial bout of euphoria and adulation was teamed with concern over whether or not Behrman would be able to find a seat. The most frequently quoted option has been Haas, the expectation being that Kevin Magnussen, who has been outperformed by teammate Nico Hülkenberg in 2023, would step aside. Plausible as that may have seemed, a prospective Haas move has now become a lot more likely. The Hulk is officially on his way to stake F1 Team Sauber for 2025 and has vacated a seat that is yet to be filled at the time of writing. Should Behrman usurp that seat at Haas and perform to the required standard, then Ferrari are in an optimal position, as they will have Leclerc tied down until at least the end of 2026, Hamilton under contract for a minimum of 2 years, and a promising young superstar waiting in the wings and, crucially, gaining experience until whenever Sir Lewis decides to call it a day. Driver-wise, Ferrari looks set. As part of a trend not too dissimilar from that defined the Schumacher days, the arrival of a superstar multiple world champion of Ferrari seems to have brought with it a flurry of fresh personnel. Both Jerome D'Ambrosio and Loic Serra jumping ship from Mercedes to begin new roles as head of the Ferrari Driver Academy and Chassis Performance Engineering respectively. With regards to D'Ambrosio, the Belgian brings considerable experience as both a driver and manager to the team, having racked up 3 wins in Formula E, 20 starts for Virgin in Formula One, and a stint as team principal for Venturi Racing for the 2020 Formula E season. His most recent role at Mercedes was that of a driver development director, a role he will be expected to play again at Ferrari alongside his additional responsibilities as deputy team principal. The placement of D'Ambrosio in charge of Ferrari's young drivers further substantiates the point I made earlier with regards to succession planning. Having worked closely with Toto Wolff during his time at Mercedes, it's tough to imagine a scenario in which D'Ambrosio's presence will not prove beneficial. The same could certainly be said of Loic Serra. Highly rated with regards to his abilities in the aero department, Serra will be replacing Enrico Cardile as Ferrari's technical director, a role in which he is expected to oversee track engineering, aero development, aero operations, and vehicle performance. It's worth mentioning that both men are expected to begin their new roles this October, which means that, given the amount of time it typically takes to put an F1 car together, the first Ferrari to be designed, conceived, engineered, and built with input from both D'Ambrosio and Serra will be the 2026 car. In other words, key Mercedes personnel have been poached in time for the new regulations. It may be unclear as to whether or not Adrian Newey will ever jump ship and join the Scuderia, but even if he were to pass up the chance, there's little denying the brains Ferrari already have on board. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed that, feel free to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think Ferrari are finally onto something for real? Or is this going to crash and burn as it has done in the past? I'll see you all very soon.